The Mind Body Detective aims to empower and educate individuals who are on a health journey that is evolving their mind, body and spirit. So I had a really great chat with Anne Bowditch last week. We did a conversation which is going out on her podcast, and I will be sharing some of that here through my channel. And we'll be breaking down some of that and looking a little bit more in depth at some of those topics and issues that came up in that. It's based around thyroid and thyroid dysfunction, and really looking at the relationship with thyroid disorders and the stresses, the mind, the mental, psychological, emotional, and social issues and stresses that are connected with thyroid disorders. Just to sort of like give you a little bit of information around the podcast, which you will be able to see through her channel, we began to look at an overview of what really the mind, body and energy psychology is about and how it works and why it works. But also we began to talk a little bit about one of the main themes of the thyroid, which is the powerlessness theme. So, you know, first of all, I think what we'll do is we'll start to look at that and break that down a little bit. But what I wanted to do was to also just sort of give a little context to some of the life cycle videos that I put out just recently. And this was looking at 5 elements and sort of shifting the central position of each of those 5 element diagrams, if you like. And I had been thinking about this, and in terms of how is it going to be helpful, you know, to help people to think about their illnesses and their diseases, but coming from a different perspective with each one of those models. And so to just sort of give a little bit of insight as to where I'm thinking that this is going to sort of fit in with something that's useful and tangible to take away. I wanted to just think a minute for thyroid. So thyroid is very often, if you like, I think it's probably 90% of thyroid cases are actually autoimmune and not necessarily a primary thyroid issue. That means that the disease or the dysfunction that the body is expressing is not necessarily originated within the thyroid organ itself, that it's coming from one or more other systems in the body. Now, there are some cases where thyroid is primary, and as we probably most of us know, if you've got a thyroid issue, that would be if you happened to live, for example, in a country where there were very low iodine levels, and therefore that would directly have an effect on how the thyroid itself can function, because it's not got the it's basically hasn't got the input that it needs to take from the environment going in order for it to be able to create the T3 and T4 molecules, which is done in the thyroid, or at least to a great degree that is happening in the thyroid, although obviously it also happens in other cells and tissues around the body. But that is the thyroid's main function. So if we just think about, for example, that there are a lot of so for example, let's just think about the liver. Now, very often thyroid issues can also be associated with liver issues. So it's a really good idea to be having liver function tested. Sometimes that might be showing up as fine. In my case, for example, I actually, when I became primarily ill with my thyroid issue, at the same time as that happening, I also had liver function was all over the place. I was also diagnosed as having EPB, so the Epstein-Barr virus, and there were various other issues going on. So there were some gallbladder issues as well. So all of those things sort of started together. So if you have an issue and there are two or three things starting at the same time, then, one of the things that I thought was, why is that happening? And as much as I was asking the individual specialists why there was a connection between the liver, the thyroid, the gallbladder, I really wasn't getting any sort of support or information back. So whilst they're very good at being concentrated in their individual fields, this holistic way of looking at the body and the whole system wasn't something that was that was being engaged with. And as an individual, I felt that I was and I am the whole system, not just the individual not just the individual thyroid gland. So I was always looking for, trying to get those sorts of answers, and one of the things that now the route going down the mind-body detective route is that we begin to be able to look at the different stresses, the conscious, psychological, emotional stresses that are actually pulling these different organs into a relationship that translates into the way that they are physically interacting, but actually is based in the aspect of mind, of the psyche, before that then emerges into the physical or biological tissue. So looking at these sort of 5 element different models, one of the things with looking at the liver is we want to be looking at, along with the theme of powerlessness, which there are many different ways of looking at that also in our life, but with the liver we want to be looking at what are the pathways, or how has our direction of travel been altered?